Ladies and gentlemen, our long national nightmare is over. uh, Brian Ferentz has quit, resigned, stepped down, been fired, asked to leave, whatever. You know how these stories go. I'm under the impression that no extremely highly paid football coach ever really voluntarily walks away, so he's probably forced to resign or quit. But anyway, you guys know the story. Iowa, one of the best defensive teams in the country, year in, year out, and an offense that can't get from here to that window on a consistent basis. Kirk Ferentz is the head coach. He's been there for 25 or 30 years, hired his son as offensive coordinator several years back, and it's been an absolute disaster. But for whatever reason, we know the reason, he wouldn't fire him. You can't fire your son, which is why you shouldn't be hiring your relatives to start with. You shouldn't hire your relatives. You shouldn't recruit your relatives. You shouldn't coach your relatives. Dion and Shador. It rarely ends well. Rarely ends well. And so you remember the whole contract thing from this offseason. Brian Ferentz had his contract reworked by Iowa. Kirk Ferentz refused to fire him because he's his son. So the athletic department said, okay, we're going to rework his contract then, and it's going to be incentive-based. He's basically going to make minimum wage when it comes to coordinators unless Iowa averages 25 points per game or more. You can average 25 points a game in your sleep, okay? There's like 80 out of the 130 teams average 25 points a game or more. It's not hard to get to 25 points unless you're Iowa. So he had to average 25 points a game or more this season. Let's see how Iowa's done. Well, they're 114th in the country in points per game up to this point of the season through 8 games. 114th at 19 points per game. Now, you might say 19 points per game isn't that far from 25. He can make that up. With 8 games done already and only 4 games to go, making up a 6-point per game differential over 4 games is nearly impossible. They would have to average like 40 points a game over their last 4 games to make that up. It's not going to happen. Here's the point totals for Iowa through 8 games this year. 24, 20, 41. Wow. 0, 26, 20, 15, 10. Twice this season, Iowa scored over the magic number of 25. They scored 41 in week 3. They scored 26 in week 5. But look at the last 4 games. 4 weeks ago, 26 points. 3 weeks ago, 20 points. 2 weeks ago, 15 points. 1 week ago, 10 points. They're not getting better. The offense isn't getting better as the season goes along. It's been a steady decline over the last 4 weeks. 26 points, 20 points, 15 points, 10 points. And Iowa had a bye week this past week. I'm kind of surprised this wasn't announced last Monday heading into the bye week as opposed to this Monday coming out of the bye week. Usually mid-season, you see a lot of, well, I won't say a lot. Generally speaking, if a team is considering making any type of a coaching change and there's a bye week coming up, that's when the change is announced. So that whatever changes you make, you have a 2-week lead in to another game, right? They've promoted some position coach, a wide receivers coach or something, to interim offensive coordinator. So he probably took over duties last week, and they just are just now announcing it today. So Brian Ferentz, Iowa offensive coordinator, out immediately at Iowa. In is the wide receivers coach as an interim offensive coordinator. And we'll see what happens with Kirk Ferentz. There's a lot of Iowa fans who obviously that wanted Brian Ferentz gone. That offense has been horrendous. It has to have been frustrating to be an Iowa fan the last few years because their defense really is good. But my God, their offense, I mean, to say their offense is bad would be an understatement. You know, we talk about teams like Clemson doesn't have a good offense. Better than Iowa's. You know, these teams you think of in your Ohio State's a good example. People say, man, Ohio State's offense doesn't look the same, seems to be struggling. Miles better than Iowa, though. I mean, almost anything is better than Iowa's offense. It's got to be frustrating to be an Iowa fan. But there's a lot of Iowa fans who are not just done with Brian Ferentz. They're ready to turn the page from Kirk Ferentz as well and kind of go a different direction. Iowa is I don't know if weird is the right word, but they're unique maybe in that they've only had like 2 head coaches in the last 50 years. In an age of college football where it's win now or get out, firing coaches every 2 or 3 years, that has not been the Iowa way. They've only had 2 coaches in like the last 50 years. Kirk Ferentz, the head coach now, like I mentioned, has been there 25 years or so, a long, long time. And the coach before that was there even longer. Anyway, we'll see what direction Iowa goes in terms of offensive coordinator. But I just thought I'd get on here and make a video real quick, because every week on the Your Season Is Over video, we've been doing like the Iowa update, like where are they at with the points per game in terms of Brian Ferentz keeping his job. But again, this is why another reason why I harp on the nepotism thing all the time. It just never works. Clemson's got problems because they handed out a bunch of scholarships to coaching relatives who didn't deserve them. Iowa's got the nepotism problem with the offensive coordinator. Nepotism hurt Mark Richt at Miami. Mark Richt hired his son as offensive coordinator down there, and it didn't work. Deion and Shedeur Sanders is a mess, in my opinion. Now, Shedeur is good, but I think it's bothering the rest of the team. I don't want to get into all that. That's a whole separate deal there. But I just don't think nepotism has a place in major college football. Iowa, prime example, number 1. So, Southern Cal and Lincoln Riley. Defensive coordinator Alex Grinch, you're on the clock. You're up next. It's your turn. Get rid of that bum. To be fair to Southern Cal, I don't think it matters if you fire Alex Grinch, though. I don't think any defensive coordinator Lincoln Riley gets is going to make that much of a difference. I also don't think there's a bunch of high-level elite defensive coordinators with their hands in the air that are ready to volunteer to take over that job at Southern Cal. Whatever defensive coordinator takes that job at Southern Cal, they're going to take a huge hit to their coaching reputation. I think it's a philosophical, a fundamental, an organizational problem with Lincoln Riley, more so than I do Alex Grinch. But Alex Grinch is going to get fired. It's just a matter of when. Will it be today? Will it be tomorrow? Will it be next week? Will it be at the end of the season? I don't know. But he's going to get fired. You got to have a scapegoat. There's got to be somebody to point at and blame, and that person's going to be Alex Grinch. So Southern Cal and Lincoln Riley, you're on the clock. Let's get rid of Alex Grinch. Have a good morning.